May 19th, Akim Aliu, former professional hockey player. He spent I believe, at least one season in the National Hockey League with the Calgary Flames, but he spent majority of his time in professional hockey in the AHL, American Hockey League, and East Coast Hockey League, the farm programs to the NHL. And he wrote an article this past week talking about discrimination and just his experience in the hockey world, and it was definitely eye-opening to some of the worst side of hockey. And I'm sure you've read the article. I mean, what were your initial thoughts after just reading it?
Yeah, I saw the article, and in my mind, I was like, this isn't part of hockey. Like, yeah, this is happening. We don't see it. Like, it's kind of pushed to the side of things. Like, we don't see many African American players in the league. Like, I think it said there were 77 total something, but there's no place for it, obviously. I've seen it playing myself. It's just not, shouldn't be there. He explained like how he was treated, how it made him felt and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it all it all really started. And I think when he was really young. And I think a great point that he made was racism doesn't just pop into your head, right? Like that stuff is built into you. So when he was playing, yeah, exactly. Like you're not born a racist, but you don't just racism doesn't just happen in a snap. It's built up over time. And in his article, he talked about when he got to Windsor, some of the stuff they did to him. Putting Tiger Bomb in his jockstrap. I mean, that's brutal. And throwing his gear on the roof. Like, I mean, I don't really. That's just abominable. Like, I don't understand why they got to do that. And
it's far from a normal like team prank that
you'll
do to one of your buddies.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine being on that team and thinking about that team dynamic. It just makes me shudder. And it makes me feel a little bit ashamed to be a hockey player, seeing stuff like this happen in the sport that's supposed to be my safe space. It's tough. It's tough to see stuff like that. And yeah, as you said, there's just absolutely no place for that at all in the sport.
Right.
He talked a little bit about how he talked about the hockey is for everyone movement, right? And how,
right.
And one of the big points in his article was that hockey is not for everyone. So, and that's actually the title of his article. So what do you take from that?
Yeah, I saw that. And one of the points in the article was he doesn't want the hockey is for everyone label just to be a little media stunt for the NHL for a few weeks. It's something that's like we really got to look at, like just as much as hockey fights cancer, like all that stuff, like it's got to be incorporated into what we look at every day. And the movements, like, yeah, we've seen it get better over the years, and the acceptance of diverse people throughout every sport. But in hockey in general, we need to see it more.
No.
As a ref, like I ref youth hockey as well, and they're cracking down on this stuff too, with like the bantams who are starting to like understand like what this stuff is, and they're able to like chirp more and stuff, and like they're handing out match penalties like so much more often, which I mean you don't want to see a kid get a match penalty, but for this, like you kind of have to, like hate speech, like and then they'll have a hearing, and it's an attempt to do this so that when like a learning experience, so that when they get up to the higher levels, if they do, it's not something they're going to do there. It's like eliminating it at like the start.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the younger kids. I mean, you cannot be letting stuff like this slide because they if you allow this one time when a kid is a peewee, and then you start cracking down on them, like 2-3 years later, I mean, that means nothing because he's already going to have this mindset that, you know what, I didn't get punished the first 3 years. Why does that mean I should get punished now? And you're absolutely right. It needs to be cracked down on early. And I'm happy to see that that's happening. But I'm also, it just kind of pisses me off that, you know, it's happening at all because, I mean, it's gruesome and it doesn't belong. And,
Right.
and, you know, going back to my last point, I came back to me, you know, hockey generally, looking at hockey, it's probably one of the, you know, least diverse sports. I mean, just if you look at the professional league, especially the NHL, like you said, there's only been 77, you know, like black people in the league, and you know, a majority of what you see is white people, whether they be from Canada, America, or European. You don't see a lot of that diversity that you may see in, let's say soccer, right? And I don't want to refer to the NFL or NBA because in those leagues as well, I mean, they are more diverse when it comes to race, but it's really the same. You know, it's black guys and white guys in the NFL and NBA. You don't see a lot of diversity there, but when it comes to the NHL and hockey, I think it's probably one of the least diverse sports, and that's definitely a motivator for this kind of racism in sport. So another thing with Akim Aliu that came up, actually not so recently, it actually came up a while ago. Bill Peters, the coach of the Calgary Flames, was let go because of claims that Akim Aliu brought forth.
Right.
That he had said some pretty disgusting things. You know, saying the N-word to him because of the choice of his music, and you know, just to see, you know, what comes to your mind when you hear that kind of crap?
You know, it's not something where I want to be there when it happens. You know, I have been there on the ice when it's happened, and it's just embarrassing because not just for someone on my own team to say it, but like to be in that position. Like, I'm a hockey player, like I'm white, I'm playing hockey, and there are other white kids on my team saying these slurs, and I just don't want to have that reputation on me for being a hockey player.
Yeah. And I think especially in a sport like hockey, you know, there's stuff referred to as, you know, quote unquote locker room talk, but you know, I think there's definitely things that can be said in the locker room that shouldn't be said outside the locker room. But I think there is a strict line when it comes to racist and hate speech and hateful comments. I mean, you like. I don't care, you know, what space you're in. I mean, there's no reason that, you know, saying, you know, racial slurs should be a part of your regular vocabulary, whether there are people, you know, that could be offensive to near you or not.
Yeah, regardless if they're there or not. You just shouldn't have that in your vocabulary.
I think it's kind of, I don't want to say amazing, but I mean, it does amaze me the fact that Steve Downey, the guy who caused a lot of this trauma to Akim Aliu when he was in Windsor, went on to play over 400 NHL games. I mean, you would think that this kind of behavior would cause some sort of consequence, but I think the leniency that went towards his situation just kind of shows, you know, how hockey kind of has grown from it, but also where hockey was at just a short time ago.
Right.